Selecting a tripod is never particularly easy because you're always trying to get the best possible tripod available out there. And it's not made any easier by the likes of Leofoto, whose equipment I really like, but their tripod designations are often very similar. So in front of me over here, I have 3 tripods, and I'm actually going to talk about a 4th one as well, and all of them are called 324s. There are some interesting nuances between each of these tripods, but ultimately at the heart of each of these tripods is each one's legs are 32 millimeters on the top diameter, and they have 4 leg sections. Just to do a quick recap on how Leofoto names their tripods, essentially every time you see a name from Leofoto, you have the range name. So for instance, LS stands for their very highly acclaimed Ranger series. LP would be their Poseidon series, and so on and so forth. The next 3 digits would then be, the first 2 being the diameter of the top leg section, and then the last digit being the number of leg sections that there are. So a 324 series tripod is going to have a 32 millimeter diameter top leg section and 3 leg sections to each leg. The last kind of suffix that you're going to get on the tripod itself would be what it is. So for instance, C stands for carbon fiber. CEX stands for leveling head, and there is now, of course, the new CPro, which I'm going to get to as we go through this particular video. The first tripod in the 324 range is, of course, the venerable 324 carbon fiber tripod. This is a well-known and respected tripod. It gives a load capacity of around 15 kgs. It is duralumin, shoulder, apex, and feet joints, for instance. The leg locks themselves are duralumin coated in a rubber shroud with a nice grippy texture to it. The legs themselves have 3 different stop angles, and each angle comes out and closes nice and automatically, just like that. It's a really effective bomb-proof tripod. In terms of its specifications, it weighs around 1,310 grams or 1.3 kilograms without the head attached. And I'm going to give you the weights of all of these tripods without the head attached, and I'll discuss the head separately at the end. But the tripod without the head is 1.3 kilograms. It has a minimum height, so in other words, ground level height of shooting of only 75 millimeters off the ground. Again, not including the height of the head itself that you attach to the tripod thereafter. The maximum height without any additional center column is 1.3 meters, or 1305 millimeters to be exact. Now this is important because all of the Ranger series of the Leofoto tripods don't have a center column, and this is important for photographers who are wanting to get the most stability out of their tripods, because the center column is ultimately the one part of the tripod that has the most flex and the most possibility of actually introducing any kind of vibration into the camera. So what you really want to do is use your tripod without a center column, or the center column set to its lowest if you have one. Leofoto obviously did with the center column itself, and they just created the Ranger tripods without a center column. That said, the Leofoto LS-324 carbon fiber tripod does ship with a very short DC-322 extension, which basically gives an additional amount of height to the tripod with a screw-on center column. This means that the tripod can reach up to 1.6 meters in height with the center column attached. So that's pretty impressive and quite tall for a tripod and of course the 324 carbon fiber tripod weighs just shy of 1.4 kilograms or 1390 grams in total. So it's a really lightweight, stable support system. Moving on to the next tripod over here, which is the 324CEX. I specifically put together a video which you can see in this corner over here, which basically indicates the differences between the 324 and the 324CEX and which one I prefer and why. So I'm not going to go all into that at the moment because you can watch that video separately. But these two tripods have the same carbon fiber weave. It's a 10-layer carbon fiber weave. They've got the same leg locks. They've got the same rubber feet at the end, which can be replaced with spikes. and they have the same weight capacity of 15 kilograms. The difference lies in the fact that the CEX has this really nifty leveling head attached to it. Now, the leveling head basically means that you can set up your tripod and then level the ball head thereafter so that you can get more accurate panoramas, or if you're shooting with video, you can get a nice accurate panning base on your ball head itself. So it does add a lot of flexibility to the tripod itself. But the more important feature for some photographers is the fact that it comes with extra length legs. So for an addition of 220 grams, making this a 1.6 kilogram tripod without the head, you get an additional 30 centimeters of height. So the maximum height on this tripod is 1.7 meters, or 1,705 millimeters to be exact. Again, without the head attached to the tripod. So you can always assume that the head is going to give another 85 millimeters of height if you're using the LH-40 ball head that comes with most of these tripods. The CEX compared to the original carbon fiber is obviously a lot taller, but the downside is also that because it's taller, it is also not quite as packable. The original carbon fiber tripod can pack down to 485 millimeters or 48 centimeters basically without the head attached, whereas the CEX version of the tripod is going to be 560 millimeters in length, again without the length of the head attached. So it's significantly larger and doesn't necessarily fit into a small baggage compartment anymore. Which brings me to another 324, which unfortunately I don't have on me at the moment, but that is the Poseidon, or the LP-324C. Now basically what the Poseidon is this same tripod, the original 324 tripod, but with a vinyl wrap over the carbon fiber legs themselves, and then very importantly titanium in place of the duralumin foot ends. The actual feet have also been redesigned with a titanium screw inside there, and very importantly the leg locks themselves are the new waterproof kind with a O-ring on the top and the bottom of the leg lock itself. It means for a more rigid connection between the leg locks themselves, but more importantly it manages to minimize, if not completely negate, the ingress of water, dirt and muck that going into the legs themselves, where they can do a little bit of damage over the long term. So the Poseidon has been designed specifically for being able to photograph in adverse conditions like mud, water, sand, anywhere where you're going to potentially have the environment basically getting into your tripod. So that's where the Poseidon is set apart. I don't have one on me at the moment, but I do own the Agulhas, which is a supersized version of the Poseidon. And I have to say that thing is bomb-proof. So there is your advantage over there. It's a seaworthy version of the 324. But Leofoto have complicated things just a little bit more by now introducing the Ranger Pro. This is the 324 Carbon Fiber Pro tripod. It's still a 324, it still has all the same kind of nomenclature around it, but it now has the Poseidon joints without the titanium leg caps and titanium other componentry that you would have had on the Poseidon, and it doesn't have the leg wrap of the Poseidon itself as well. So it is slightly different to the Poseidon, and it's also slightly different to the 324. But, and this is where it gets even more confusing, it also has slightly different specifications. So although it is called a 324, it actually is taller than the original 324, but not quite as tall as the 324CEX. The new 324 Carbon Fiber Pro has a maximum height when fully extended of 1.5 meters, or 1,505 millimeters to be exact. So it is significantly taller than the original carbon fiber tripod, but not as tall as the CEX Ranger, which has the leveling head attached. Unfortunately, the Pro doesn't ship with the center column. Not that I've ever used mine in any case, but it does mean that if you're wanting to get that additional height, you would probably have to buy a center column with it instead. But there's a whole bunch of other nice little advances and adjustments to the 324 Pro series, which you can see more about in my last video, which I compared the 325 and the 325C Pro. So you've got more comfortable and nicer locks at the top of the apex. You've got a redesigned apex at the top of the tripod where there are now 4 different angles as opposed to 3 angles, which you will find on all the original Rangers. That said, unfortunately, the feet haven't been redesigned and you still only have 3 angles on the feet themselves, not 4 matching your actual angles on the apex itself. Then, very importantly, the new carbon fiber weave, which is called Snowy Mountain, I believe. It looks a little bit like rockets taking off, although Leofoto have said that it is reminiscent of snow on the Alpine peaks. These new legs are significantly stiffer and more rigid than the original 10x carbon weave tripod legs, which means that it can take significantly more than 15 kilograms when it is put to its absolute tests. Then something else is that for some reason, because of the redesign of the apex, it doesn't quite get down as low as it used to. So it now has a minimum height of around 105 millimeters. Again, not without the ball head attached to the legs themselves. So it has the same minimum height as the leveling Ranger, whereas the minimum height on the original 324 is 75 millimeters, which is pretty low. In fact, my measurements put it lower than the actual published measurements of 85 millimeters. That's a full centimeters difference, and if you're trying to get down to the ground, that can mean quite a lot. All 3 of these tripods can ship as a kit with the LH-40 ball head. Now this is a 40 millimeter ball inside hardened duralumin casing and in a low profile design, and I have to say, it's one of the best ball heads I've ever used. I know, speaking to the distributors, Landscape Gear in South Africa, they've said they've sold over 1,000 of these heads and not a single one has come back with any issues to date. So it is a really, really effective, bomb-proof and reliable ball head. And I've used it in searing heat and in subarctic conditions. Well, could you say subarctic? Sorry, yeah. Arctic conditions, subarctic conditions. I've used it up in the middle of winter in Norway and in Iceland, and I've never had an issue with it. These are fantastic ball heads. The ball head itself weighs 445 grams. If you get the one with the lever release, it's 450 grams. It has a height of around 85 millimeters from the base of the ball head to the clamp itself, so not including the height of your Arca Swiss plate or L bracket that you happen to be using. Okay, so we've got 4 different tripods with pretty much similar features, but with a little bit of a nuance between what each one can do. So these are my recommendations basically. If you're wanting just solid, stable performance with the lowest price and the lowest weight, then the 324 is probably going to be the best tripod for you to get. It is still the cheapest tripod available, and I'll put all the prices in a table in a moment so you can actually compare them between each other. But this is basically, the entry level is excellent. You can't go wrong with it necessarily. If you need height, and I mean like lots of extra height, and you are really into your panoramics or your videography, then this is the more logical tripod to go for. This is the CEX version, the leveling Ranger, because it gives you that much more extra height and it gives you the built-in level, which makes a huge, huge difference. Yes, of course you could always buy the LB60N or 75N leveling base and attach it to any of these tripods, but my personal usage, I find that having the built-in leveling head is absolutely fantastic, and I use it all the time. If you need weatherproof resistance and the ability to go into the ocean water and not care about the fact that you've got salt water swirling around the components of your tripod, then the Poseidon is probably going to be the best bet. The downside to the Poseidon is it does have shorter legs, which means that you do need to be aware of how high the tripod is if you're up on sea rocks, for instance, and you need to have more height. So over there, perhaps something like the Agulhas would be a better tripod, but that's a completely different range of tripods. The Poseidon is really there for your all-weather durability, and it does do that extraordinarily well. Then you've got the brand new Carbon Fiber Pro. Now this is kind of like a little bit of the best of all of these worlds put together. It does have the durability of the Poseidon, but it doesn't have the same titanium components. So it does mean that you still need to be more aware of keeping your tripod clean after you've come out of, for instance, sea water or muck or anywhere where there's going to be salt or corrosive elements on your tripod itself. That said, it does have the Poseidon leg locks, which means that you do have less chance of water ingress and saltwater ingress in particular into the legs themselves. The locks themselves are also significantly better than the original locks and will hold your tripod to a more rigid stability. So if you're looking for the most rigid and the strongest of all four of these tripods, then it would be the Ranger Pro, thanks to its new denser weave and the inclusion of the Poseidon leg locks themselves. Now, the 324CPro is available internationally. You can find it just about anywhere where Leofoto ships to. However, if you are wanting to get the slightly smaller, more travel-friendly version of this, the 325CPro, which I spoke about in the previous video, that's only available in South Africa. And you can ship from Nature's Light or from landscape gear to anywhere in the world, but obviously you are going to have to pay for shipping costs if you want to do that. The 324CPro is available in most regions of the world to this day, even though it's only just been announced, I think it was last year. So those are your 324 variants that are available to you if you want to buy a tripod. And each one has its own pros and its own cons. If you have one of these tripods, let me know what you think of them. Do you enjoy using your 324? Pop it into the comments below. I'd love to hear back from some more Leofoto users. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed the video and you want to hear more about Leofoto tripods, amongst the other things that I discuss, remember to subscribe and drop a like into the corner if possible. Thanks very much for watching, and again, I hope to see you on the next one. Cheers.